Hi, welcome to the English for Academic Purposes Masterclass. My name is Margot Palmer. I'm the Acting Program Director at the Torrens University Language Centre. Today, you've got the great pleasure of being taught by Stephen Perry, who is a Senior Learning Facilitator at TULC. He's been in the industry for about 18 years, and he has a wealth of classroom experience across many different ages and has taught many different levels. For the last 9 years, he's specialised in higher education language and academic support. He mainly assists students preparing for university and supporting them while they undertake their courses from foundation to PhD. Stephen holds a Master's in Applied Linguistics, a Bachelor's in Education, along with the Cambridge Centre and Delta, and is just a fantastic teacher. So handing over to you now, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Margot, and welcome to everyone, wherever you are in the world. As Margot said, we're from the Torrens University Language Centre, and one of the things that we focus on at the Language Centre is direct entry to university, preparation for university courses. And part of that is language, but part of that is academic skills and academic preparation as well, getting students ready to be able to deal with the assessments, the tasks, and I suppose the academic thinking that's required at university. And for a lot of students, this transition is strange. It's a little bit difficult. And this is true for international, for domestic students, for anyone entering university. You're entering a new world with its own language, with its own conventions and expectations. And so there's a lot of things that you need to learn. But I think that that's the key word, learn. Everything that you need for university can be learned. They are all just skills that you can focus on, that you can practice, and you can improve in. And we're going to have a look at one of those sets of skills today, which is using research in your writing. Now, a lot of students tell me that academic writing is one of the areas that they feel most nervous about entering university. And I can understand that completely. It is a very specific form of writing. And sometimes you can be very unfamiliar with it, depending on your background. So we're going to look specifically today about using the research inside your writing and bringing together all the different pieces of research that you found into one small piece of writing. I think this is one of the key skills to getting used to academic writing. So today I'm going to briefly talk about what academic writing is and talk to you a little bit about how it's different from some of the other areas, the kind of key characteristics that it has. Then we're going to move on to looking at research. Now, you will have researched in your own language before, I'm sure. Research is just simply the act of reading with a purpose. However, doing that in a second language has some special difficulties or complexities, I suppose. It's definitely a slower thing. So we're going to look at some of the things that can help speed that up a little bit. After that, we'll have a look at synthesizing sources. We're going to look at how you can take that research you found and bring it into your writing. And this is often something that's different across cultures, so it's worth looking at how English does it. And then to finish off, we'll look at building a paragraph. A paragraph is the foundation of all writing. If you can write a paragraph, you can write anything, really. So we'll look at some real basics about how it's structured, but mostly about how you can put research into that paragraph in a way that allows you to keep your own voice, which is really important, I think. All right. Academic writing. Now, academic writing often seems very scary because it's what you're going to be assessed on most at university. It's a written form. It takes time. You have to include a lot of different research and ideas that are new for you. So it's not just as simple as sitting down and writing something else. It's got a lot of different complex parts to it. However, I think that academic writing can really be simplified to a couple of key skills. And it's good to be aware of what English expects in academic writing. Every language expects something different. Languages are different, how they communicate are different. And so English has its own specific way, which is probably a little or very, depending on the language, different from what you're used to. So just starting off, academic writing at its foundation is a way of communicating, like all the things that we do, all the writing that we do. The difference is that in this case, your audience is a group of academics. Now, this will be your professors and lecturers. It will be other students. If you're very good at it, it will be the wider community as well. And so what you need to do with academic writing is think about, what does my audience know? What does my audience need to hear? How is my audience expecting to hear it? And expectation is an important part of this. If you write a letter, if you write a newspaper article, these are two very different things. And when you pick up the newspaper, you're expecting it to be in a particular way. The same with a letter. You look at them, you can immediately identify them as what they are. Academic writing is the same. Now, part of the purpose of academic writing is to make you part of a broader discussion. You're not just writing for your professors and for the other students. You're meant to be looking at what other people have already written, thinking about it, and bringing it into your own writing. So you're part of this idea of academia. Now, obviously, your academic writing at this level is going to be assessed. And so part of the reason that you do it is to show that you understand the things that you've read. You understand the concepts, the difficulties, the ideas that are happening inside your discipline. And finally, academic writing shows that you are an academic. It's like going to a job interview. You put on the suit, you look the part, people can tell that you belong. And it's the same with academic writing. What you're trying to do is show that you belong in the discipline by doing the things that are expected in there. Now, academic writing often feels overwhelming, but I think that you can narrow it down to three very simple characteristics and three very simple changes that you can make in your own writing to make it more academic. Now, the first of these is depersonalized. When we speak, when we're communicating with other people, our spoken language is very focused on people. It's what I did, it's what you're going to do, it's what you need me to do now. And this spoken form and the very personalized way that it has is something that you need to start to move away from. Academic writing is not about the person. It's not about the individual in general. It's about concepts, ideas, groups of people, society as a whole. And so talking about I, you, and we changes that topic. So these are the things that you can start to pull out of your writing. And this is a grammar change that you can make as well. You want to be using a little bit more passive grammar, a little bit more noun use and noun phrases, nominalization, all of these kinds of skills that move away from the personal and the spoken. Academic writing is specific. And again, this is a change from when you're speaking. When you're speaking, you can say, can I have that thing over there? And the person listening to you knows what it is from the context, from the situation. But when you're writing, you don't have that context, that physical thing around you to help with the communication. So you need to be much more specific about what you want to say. And this can be as simple as, instead of saying something like nowadays, because when is nowadays, looking at the specific time that you're talking about. So if you're talking about social media, you might say since Facebook was started, or since 2007. These are very specific times, and they let your reader see not just exactly what you're talking about, but that you understand and you know the details of what you're talking about. These specific details are really important, especially the higher you go. Diploma, bachelor, master's, PhD, you get more and more specific in your focus. And the last thing there is that it is supported. Now, there are two main ways that you'd support your academic writing. One of them is through reasons and explanations, details. The other one is through references and the research and showing that an idea that you have is agreed with by someone else who's done deeper research than you have. And it's this final point that we're going to talk about more today, is using that research from other people's work in your own writing. So before we go any further, I thought I'd let you have a look at what academic writing looks like. I'll give you 60 seconds. Have a look at the paragraph. Don't read it for meaning. There's a lot of new vocabulary in there. Have a look at the structure, the way that it's written, sentence types, vocabulary. 60 seconds, have a quick look. All right. So when you look at that paragraph, you'll notice all the green in there, the specific language, the specific terminology, the specific vocabulary for the topic. And that's a large part of what's in there. You can see the purple. So instead of saying people or you or I or we, they're using individual or speaker for talking about one person. They're using society or community for talking about larger groups. Excuse me. And you can see the support in there. So there are 4 separate references. Now, this might seem a lot, and for some disciplines, it probably is a little bit more than is necessary. But I think it's useful for you to see that referencing can be very high frequency in writing. You can put it in more than just at the end of the paragraph. You can put it after each idea that you found elsewhere. So why should we reference, really? Because a lot of students tell me, well, I've read it, I understand it, I'm writing about it in the text. Why do I need to put a reference? You know who they are, you know the topic, you know I'm right. Well, yes, of course. But one of the main things about academic writing and referencing is that you're giving credit to someone who's done a lot of work. If you're reading somebody's research paper, that's taken time and effort to do. They've done some very specific research, and this also comes back to being part of the community. If you are looking at professors and other students as being your equal in university life, you want to give them credit for the work that they have done. Otherwise, it feels a little bit like you're stealing it. There's also the element of it makes your arguments stronger, because you're showing that somebody has looked more deeply into the topic and they've found this idea to be true. Using references can also show your position on something. It shows you believe these people over here rather than this one over here. And that can be an important thing as well for topics that are complicated or have different theories around them. Research shows that the things that you believe or you think are true have some support in the wider community. And I suppose coming back to that university essay writing assessment idea, references show that you've done a lot of reading, that you understand the topic, and that you know that this is expected, so you're doing it. So there is that element of assessment in there as well. So let's go back to that paragraph again, and let's look at why each of these 4 references were used. And each of them has a different function. And the references do different things because they are different kinds of sources. So the first one in red there is a definition. Now, it might seem silly to reference a definition because a definition is what everyone believes to be correct. This is what it means, right? However, there can be different definitions of things. Definitions can change over time and according to place. And so by referencing a definition, you're showing that this is the one that I feel is correct. The blue there is supporting a general idea. And this is a really good thing to do in your writing. If you have something that is, a really general point, but with no reference to it, it feels very weak. It feels like you're just putting words in to fill the space. But if you add a reference to that, suddenly you can say, someone's done this research. I don't need to give you the specifics. This is generally true. If you want to know more, go and read their research. Underneath that in purple, you have the specific example. And it's perfectly okay to reference these. This allows you to just put in a couple of words to say this is true without spending a lot of words explaining the example and how the example works. It's quite common to do this kind of thing. And the last one there, the green, is it provides a theoretical point. And again, theories like definitions change over time, so it's good that you're providing support for that. All right. Excuse me. That brings us to research. So researching, as I said before, it can be difficult in a second language. It takes longer. There are more things to focus your brain on. There's new vocabulary, as well as new concepts. There's probably a different way of thinking about it in a different language. The thing that you're reading might not be structured the way you're expecting it to. So research in general is time consuming. In a second language, it's especially time consuming. So it's worth thinking about how you can start your research. And this is probably a little bit different from how you do it in your own language. In your own language, you can probably go to the most complex things because you understand all the details around them. You have the vocabulary already. You can jump straight in. But in English, there's going to be some time that you need to spend learning the language around that topic. So it's good to start with easy to understand sources. Start with the internet, more general publications, things that are easy to understand from a language perspective. And this allows you to get into the concept more easily. Then move on to industry sources, textbooks, government sources, and then move on to the expert ones, the research journals. And by following this progress, it allows you to get a good understanding of the concept and build your vocabulary at the same time. Once you're familiar with the concept, then use the research journals, look at the research that they've done, and follow that research trail across. If you find a good bit of research somewhere, have a look at that. So underneath there at the bottom, I've got the example in purple. These two authors make a really interesting point. I go, oh, okay. So sure, I read it in someone else's research. I go, that's an interesting point. I could stop there and just take that point and reference it. But a way to really easily expand your research is to go and have a look at that other piece of research and read some of that. And you might find another point that's on the topic that's really interesting, and you can follow that one as well. And so this following the research trail, looking at who is referenced in what you're reading, is a really good way to expand your reading and your reference list. All right. Now, organizing your research and keeping all of the things that you've found can be complicated. Right? There's nothing worse than finding a really good article, reading it, going, I love that point. I want to put it in my writing. You put it to one side, you come back tomorrow, and you realize you've closed the the window and close the tab on your computer, and you've lost that, and you have to go and look for it again. So one of the excuse me, one of the best things that you can do is, as you go, keep a record. Now, this can simply be notes, a couple of keywords, but include the author or the web link or wherever you found it. That way, you know, if I want to read about that, it's over there. And you have that rolling record. Now, you can do that by making a Word document and just keeping all the links in it, by bookmarking all the links as you go, keep the PDFs you find, screenshots of the specific paragraphs and the title page, you know, all of those kinds of things. Start your reference list early if you want. If you're very organized, you can go and have a look at keeping a logbook. Because all of these things help you to organize those ideas. And once you've organized it, then it makes it easier for you to go on and write. You're not spending your energy looking between sources the whole time. So keeping a logbook could be as simple as a little paraphrase note, the reference, and then the link. And then when you come to write, you can just move these around, organize the ideas, and it's already half done for you. So it's very much worth taking some extra steps that you maybe wouldn't take necessarily. And this can help keep you organized and on track. So once you've found your research, you need to start organizing it. And yes, obviously some of this is going to happen in your head, some of it's going to happen while you're writing, but you can do it at an earlier stage. And by grouping the sources that you have, it means that when you come to write, you can just pick up this pile here and go, that's what I need for this section. So you can organize them by topic, or by the writer's opinion. You can organize them by the research topic that you're using, or just individual arguments that you want to make. At a minimum, when you're writing these notes down, keep family name and the year, because this allows you, as a quick reference, to go back and find it. It also means that when you come to write it, you've already got it there, ready. Another thing that's worth thinking about is references can be used multiple times in the same piece of writing. If you're writing an essay on a topic and you find a journal article that has everything that you need, don't feel you can only use it the once. You might use it in the introduction, and then again in a body paragraph, and again in another place. And if something is so vital like that, probably the references that it's using are going to be useful for you as well. So have a look at them. And another way is, once you have all the ideas, is to organize them by keyword or argument. I'm going to do a little bit of that keyword organization today. These kinds of, I suppose, keyword thing are nice at that end point when you start to write, because you're looking, oh, all these things are together. Great, there's my paragraph. So I have there 4 different references, 4 different sources that I've found. I want you to just quickly run your eyes over them and see if you can find the key ideas. I'll give you 60 seconds. Okay. So looking at that, you might have picked up a few different points. They're all on the same topic, so hopefully you all found online learning all the way through it. There are a couple of other things that you could organize them by as well. So when I looked at them earlier, these were the keywords that I picked out. Online learning, through all of them. But then the little bits in purple I thought were useful. And you might have found more things than that. In the first sentence, you might have found advantages for students. Okay, that's key as well. Maybe in the second sentence, you also went feeling of isolation. So what are keywords for you are going to be different depending on what you're writing about and what you feel is useful for you. So don't feel that they need to be the same as everyone else's. Now, if you were going to have a look at those four, specifically the purple there, how would you organize them? Can you see any patterns, any things that you would put together that have the same idea? Is there anything that's different? So again, I'll give you 60 seconds. Have a look at those things in purple and see if you could organize them into some different groups. All right. Now, don't worry if you haven't made any connections yet. The key is that we're looking for them. So if I were going to organize these, I would probably organize them in two different groups. The first one is why students choose online learning. And you can see the three there. You've got advantages of geography. So if you're far away, and I would connect geographically restricted with distance. These two words go together. They're the same kind of concept. If you look at flexibility for employment and family, these are things that take time. So I'd say that time connects to that one as well. So those three, I would put in one kind of group together. They're all advantages that students can experience from doing online learning. And the other one there is more of a solution to a problem. So they're saying the problem of isolation, well, if you communicate more on online learning, that can be one of the solutions for you. So two very clear groups there. And this kind of separation will very much depend on what you want to write about. And so when you start researching and writing, make sure you have questions or topics in your head. That's one of the things that can really speed things up, is knowing what you're going to write about and finding things that match that. All right. So we've found some sources, and now it comes time to bring them together. And this is the step that can be more complicated. Sometimes because of the language and getting the vocabulary all to match, sometimes because writing a paragraph is just quite hard, but also because a lot of students feel that when they're writing and using references, they lose their voice a little bit. And I think that's one of the things I want to focus on with you today is how can you keep your own voice, your own style, your own idea that you want to present, even though you're using lots of references to support it. So synthesizing sources is just a matter of bringing things together. And by bringing different ideas together, what it allows you to do is to refocus things. If you've got different excuse me, ideas focused on a slightly different topic to yours, by bringing in things that are connected to each other, you're allowing those references to be made more, I suppose, useful for your writing. They point in the right direction for you. And this rearranging of ideas is a really important thing, because then it changes it from someone's words into your words, which is quite important. As we said earlier, using references makes them stronger, but synthesizing sources, using sources to support each other and to support you really provides a good foundation. You look at a paragraph, you go, oh, okay, look at all those references in there. It shows the reader that you understand as well. By bringing sources together from different places, you're showing a really high-level thinking skill. You're looking at how different things relate to each other, how they contrast from each other. And this is something that can really show your understanding of the field that you're looking at, all of the topics. And the final thing, I think the most important thing, is it allows you to write in your own voice. I'm going to look at the different ways of bringing things in now, and I'll talk more about this idea of voice. So the basic ways of bringing references into your writing is via these three methods. You have paraphrasing, which is the most common way of bringing references in. And paraphrasing, I think, is the most useful in terms of the way that it's efficient in bringing ideas in, the way that it allows you to work things into your own writing more easily. Because what you're doing in paraphrasing is taking an idea, reading it, understanding it, and then regurgitating it in your own words. And so this allows you to keep your own style, it keeps your own focus, and it's a really useful thing. The next one down is integrated quotations or partial quotations. And these are the better types of quotes to use. You're only using 2 or 3 words. You're building the rest of your sentence around those 2 or 3 words. And so this means that, again, it's your voice. Your writing is at the front, and the references are just there as a small supporting role. And the last one is full sentences or longer quotations. Now, students I know love longer quotations because somebody's already written it for you. It seems so simple to just take that idea, put it into your own writing, and then use it. But unfortunately, using longer quotations is really not that common in academic writing, especially at the university assessment level. We use it for a couple of very specific purposes, but on the whole, it's something that you want to avoid. So, paraphrasing. Now, paraphrasing in the simplest sense is reading something, understanding it, and writing it in your own words. When I say it like that, it seems very simple. But I know that many of you will have done exam courses like IELTS and things like that, where you need to take one sentence and transform it into one sentence. Lots of synonyms, changing the word order. It's a little bit complicated and it takes time. When you're writing academically, this is not really a technique that you need to use very often or very much. In fact, it's much, much better to take a whole page or a whole paragraph and paraphrase that into a sentence, a part of a sentence. Read something, understand it, and go, how could I summarize that? How can I put that really short and simply into my own words? And that's really the function of paraphrasing. Another thing you can do with paraphrasing is bring together multiple ideas. So they say this, they are related to that, they're connected. So let's bring them together and put it in our own words. And this is, I suppose, one of the ways of keeping your own style through your writing. Paraphrasing allows you to keep only the part that's necessary. So when someone else is doing some writing, they're writing for their own topic, their own purpose, their own ideas. When you're taking something from their research, it's never going to match yours exactly. You're writing a different question for a different purpose. And this means that by paraphrasing, you can remove all of those things that don't relate to your own writing. And it's something that is often a trouble with full quotations, is that the context doesn't match anymore. And the great thing about paraphrasing is you can do it from the moment you read it. You read something, you go, that's a great idea. Rather than copy paste and keep it, just automatically look and go, oh, what did I like? Oh, I like that part. write it in your own words. It's efficient. If you have a look at the example underneath there, you have the red, which is the original, and you have the blue, which is the paraphrase. And the first thing that you should notice, without even reading it, is that the blue is shorter than the red. And that's what you're aiming to do, to shorten, to simplify, to change so that it suits your purpose. Integrated quotes. I like integrated quotes. I think that they're a really good way of matching long quotations with paraphrasing. They're not something you can use all the time, but they're definitely something that you should use in your writing. And what you're doing is you're looking at something that you've read, going, oh, I really love that phrase. I really love those couple of words there. They say it clearly and in a way that I couldn't. It's better than the way I could say it and shorter. And by doing it in this way, you're taking the core of an idea of someone's words, but you're still building your own sentence around it. And this is really important, that you've got a nice clear sentence, you're saying what you want to say, and then you can slot in an idea from someone else. Now, this is a little bit more complicated than paraphrasing because you do need to make sure that the grammar matches. And so from a technical level, it's a little bit harder. However, if you're only choosing 2 words, 3 words, a couple of nouns, maybe a verb and a noun, you're making it simple for yourself. And that's the key thing, is when you're doing this, don't make life hard. Right? Find a couple of simple nouns, an adjective noun, and put them in as the subject, the object of the sentence. And if you have a look at the example underneath, you can see the red is the original. And I really liked that phrase, geographically restricted. And so I built my own blue sentence around that. And then I added the reference at the end. So this minimizes other people's writing, and we're showing it's other people's writing by using inverted commas and maximizing our time in our own writing. Right. The last one is full quotations. Now, full quotations have a purpose. You can use them in academic writing. Absolutely, you can. However, they're not common. They're not something you should do all the time, and you should probably only use them either to set the mood or the tone, so put it before the introduction or as the final sentence of the conclusion. These are really good, really common places to use longer quotations. Or if someone has written something so perfectly, so concisely, so clearly that you couldn't write it better yourself. And if that's the case, yes, use a longer quotation. The issue with that, using a longer quotation in the middle of your writing, is that it's like using a picture. It's beautiful. It definitely adds something to your writing and makes it better. But unless you explain why it's there, it's kind of a bit strange. So using a long quotation doesn't work by itself to make your point. You need to introduce it. You need to link it. You need to explain it. You need to say how this matches the idea that you're talking about. Using a long quotation requires sentences before and after that integrate it. And so sometimes you can end up using a lot more words than you want to on a very simple point, just because you're using a quotation. And this means also that it doesn't generally save you time when you're doing it. So if you have a look at the example, the original, and the quotation are identical. Not saving any words at all. And you're not specifying into your own writing. You're not clearing, you're not connecting it in any way. So what I would say for you guys is, if you like using full quotations, have a look at some things in English and have a look at how and where they use them. Have a look at some research journals. And this is the best way to learn what kinds of integration are happening is to have a look at the research writing that's happening in your field. If you're studying business, have a look at the business. Public health, have a look at the public health documents. And these will show you what's expected in your field and how often different things are used. Okay. What I'd like you to do here is have a look at the 3 different synthesized sources in there, the 3 pieces of research with references. And I'd like you to decide which one is a paraphrase, which one is an integrated quote, and which one is a full or a longer sentence. So have a think to yourself, give you 60 seconds to have a quick look. Okay. So when you're looking, excuse me, you can see that the first one there in orange is an integrated quote. It's 2 words, the rest of the sentence is built around it and continues. The green in the middle, no quotation marks. It's a paraphrase, it's longer, it's all of your own words. And the final one there is a long quotation. And if you have a look at how the long quotation is used, it's just used as confirmation for things that you've already said. It doesn't make its own argument. It's just there as a strong confirmation. So, building a paragraph. Paragraphs really are the building blocks of all academic writing. They have a very distinct structure, and in general, English is very boring when it comes to writing. We like things in a very specific frame and structure. We're not flamboyant in any way. That's not the point of English. So when you see a paragraph, it generally follows exactly the same kind of structure, 80–90% of the time. Once you learn that structure, it's pretty easy to put your ideas into it. It's just a frame that you can follow every time. Now, we're not really going to look at what that frame or structure is. That's a different session completely. But what we are going to look at is how we can take our own ideas with the research and keep our own voice through this. And the key thing for, I suppose, your own voice in your writing is you have to think about research and references not as leading you through, as providing all of the evidence for you, but rather they are there to support the ideas that you have. And I can't emphasize that enough. You're still writing it. Your paragraph is your idea, it's your argument. When you're putting those references on there, all you're saying to the reader is, my idea is correct because they've done the research that prove me correct. It's not, here are different people's ideas, please look at them. Right? And a lot of students do feel that you've done all this reading and research, you're putting all the references in everywhere. Where are my ideas? Well, in 2 places, really. One is in the selection, organization of that research and those ideas. And the second one is in how you lay those things out. Right? And that's why paraphrasing is really important. And so what I would say is when you want to write is do all that reading first, understand the concept, and put it to one side. Make your notes, organize your ideas, write your paragraph in your own words with the knowledge you've gained from reading. And then after that, come back to your pile of references and see what matches the ideas that you've used. Like, oh, this idea here. Ah, okay, yeah, I read that one there. Put the reference in. And that way, it will feel more like the references are supporting you rather than you're just writing other people's ideas. And as I said, paraphrasing is the key for this. It lets you use your words at all times. So if we were going to build a paragraph, we can quickly brainstorm the research. So this is the research that we used before. We organized it into why students choose online learning. And we've identified what we think are the key words. And so what I would do is, if I had that, go, okay, read it. Time and distance, online learning, flexibility. All right. I think flexibility is the key idea I want to write about in there. And by flexibility, I think it's, it's useful for commitments or time or distance. And I put my other examples under that, my other support. But I want to write a paragraph about online learning being flexible. And so that's exactly what you would do. My main point, flexibility. Why is it flexible? It comes back to the idea of explaining why again. Because time and distance don't become factors anymore. They don't become things that stop you from studying. Why are time and distance things that can stop you? Because you have family and work. Maybe you live far from the university. In this time of COVID, we're all around the world now. Distance really has become a factor. So all of those kinds of things are my explanations further down. So I take those ideas and then I'd expand them out and write my own paragraph. Again, I start with the idea, flexibility at the top. I explain why it's flexible and include a little bit of the ideas about time and distance. If you have a look at that paragraph at the bottom there are no references anywhere in there. Yes, I'm aware of where the ideas are, but it's all organized in my own way. If you have a look at the black text, all my own words. The frame, the building of the paragraph all comes from me. The ideas that I've found from reading, I'm putting them in there, but they're coming out in a way that I'm deciding. Once you've done that, once you've written it, excuse me, in your own way, what you can then do is look at it and look at changes that you could make. So it's all paraphrased in there. Do I want a little quotation? Do I have a good quotation that would finish off the paragraph? Are there any words that I could say in a better way? So learners located far from university. Oh, okay. There was something I had before that I could use for that. That's when you come back in and you find your pile of references. You start to add them in. And you can see there, I put in 3 references. And these references go directly after the idea that they match. So if you have a look at park, for instance, work and family, you have a look at the original, family and employment. So some synonyms in there, and I put the references. The second one, apana. So learners who are located far from the university. Well, I liked that phrase, geographically restricted. So I'll change some of my words and put in geographically restricted. And then the final one, call. Looking at time and distance. I put the reference after time there. By doing it this way, writing it your own first, with your knowledge of the things that you've read, and then just adding the references afterwards, it can give you greater control over your own writing. It can let your own voice come to the front. But it also means that when you're writing the paragraph, you go, oh, this idea comes from somewhere, reference, 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 and allows you to put more things in because you've spent that time understanding the topic and organizing the ideas beforehand. And I think that's just what I want to finish off on today before we get into some questions. And looking at what is academic writing? Academic writing is depersonalized. Right? You're removing yourself through language from it. It's specific. using specific terms and specific topics. It's supported through explanations and through references. But through all of that, you should still feel your voice. You're the one who's deciding the arguments. You're the one deciding the topics that you're talking about in the specific. You're the one deciding the explanations and the support. Yes, it comes from a smaller group of ideas, but all of the things that you write are your voice. Your paragraph is your opinion, your structure of an idea. And I suppose just to finish off there, what I'd like to say is good luck on your academic journey. Good luck with your writing in English. It's hard to start with, but it gets easier, and it is just simply a set of skills that you can learn. And once you do, you'll find that things get much, much easier. Thank you very much, guys. So what I thought we could finish off with now is a little bit of some question and answer session. So I'm sure that there are some questions in the chat that we can start to have a look at. Any questions yet? Okay. So if you have questions. Okay, so someone's asked, how can you practice your academic writing? And that's a really good question. Practice is important for all things. The first thing when you're learning a new skill, when you're practicing anything, is to look at how people do it. If you're going to learn a sport, you'd watch someone do something and then you try and imitate it yourself. And once you can imitate it, then you practice it and try and get more professional at it. It's the same with writing. The advice for academic writing is read what you want to write. So if you are a business student, go and have a look at some business journals. If you're doing public health or nursing, start to read some of those things in English. Now, you don't need to gain a deep understanding. There are different purposes that you can read for. You can read for content and concept and ideas, which is what we do most of the time. But you can also read in a more active way, where you're looking at the organization, the structure, how they're using the language. And I think that that's one of the ways that you can improve your writing, is looking at good examples of writing, looking at how they've organized it, and thinking, oh, okay, they're using this structure. They're using this sentence type here. Let me try and do the same. And you don't necessarily need someone to look at your writing to do this. It's just a matter of imitation in the first stages. And yes, after that, one of the things that can really help is to do an academic English course, because then you can show that writing that you've done to somebody. They can give you feedback. They can give you pointers. That's one of the reasons that the Language Centre runs these courses, is so that we can help people improve. And we do a lot of work with writing on these kinds of courses. When you're looking at these EAP courses as well, they're not just going to look at writing, they're going to look at the language that you need, they're going to look at some of the cultural expectations, do reading, listening, they also do speaking as well. Presenting in English is a different skill as well. Right, so if you're at Torrens already and you're looking for advice or checking with writing, there are two departments that can help you with that. Obviously, the Language Centre helps students when they're entering university, but Torrens also offers support through the Academic Skills department, and they're associated with the library. The library is fantastic as well. Library can help you with research skills. They'll walk you through all the kinds of databases and making you more efficient. And then the academic skills often will come into your courses and talk to you about how to write specifically for the courses that you're doing. For a lot of people, there's a kind of misconception about what academic writing is. It's not just IELTS essays and things like that. It's not for and against topics. Academic writing is very specific to the field that you're doing. If you're a nurse, you're going to write very differently to somebody on a business course. And the things that you need for those two courses are very, very different. So the academic skills department at Torrens can help you with that. They can show you, I suppose, the different kinds of writing that you'll need to do. And they can help you specifically with your course. They have a lot of knowledge about that. I believe that the presentation will be accessible. We'll have to talk to the tech guys here and see how we can do that. But yes, absolutely, the presentation via the video at least will be accessible. No other questions for today? Fantastic. All right. Well, just like to finish off by saying thank you for coming. I hope you learned something. And hopefully we'll see you soon at Torrens University, helping you along on your academic journey.